What's up, guys? It's Patricia from tarantulaheaven.com, and today we're going to talk about what is different from owning an adult tarantula and a baby tarantula, also known as a sling. The reason I wanted to talk about this is because it's a position that I'm currently in. I've had Spidey for probably close to 6 years now. She is right there and has been very inactive as of late, so I hope she moves for you, but probably not. Anyway, so I do have Spidey, who's an elderly tarantula, and I recently acquired a sling who is too small to actually really see well on camera, but I will have a few pics. So now I have a sling named Blinky. It's an Arizona blonde. And while they are two totally different tarantulas, Spidey's a Chilean rose hair and Blinky, as I said, is an Arizona blonde. Even just age differences, there's very different behaviors and schedules that these guys need to follow. So I'm kind of figuring that out and learning as I go, so I wanted to kind of share my experience with you guys. So while some of these differences could be kind of chalked up to species differences, these spiders are both terrestrials and considered pretty docile, so many of these differences are also just having to do with age-related stuff. So for one thing is the eating schedules. So Spidey is as low maintenance as they come. She, first of all, she's a Chilean rose hair, so she fasts like 90% of her life. And she's like an elderly spider, like a grandma. So she doesn't really need to eat. I can go months without really feeding her. I'll try to feed her every like month or 3 weeks or so, but most of the time she's not going to want food. And even when she is eating, she really only needs to eat on a 1 to 2 week basis one time. So that's very easy as far as, it's also very easy as far as her tank cleanup too, because there's very little waste that's going on in her tank besides like the occasional spider poop. So she's really, really easy as far as feeding schedules go. And this was like the thing I noticed first with Blinky is that, you know, Blinky is a baby. So I need to feed it as much as they will eat, because I want to get them out of this fragile sling phase, because they tend to be very vulnerable, and a lot of slings don't actually make it just because they are so fragile and vulnerable at this time in their life. So of course I don't want to overfeed Blinky, but because it's a sling, I am trying to feed it like at least twice a week, just to kind of make sure that it's growing and that it's getting the proper nutrients, and that is actually fine for Blinky. Spidey will not eat twice a week. Like ever. I think there's only been one time in the whole 6 years that she ate twice in 1 week, and it was because she had just molted and she was probably starving because she'd been fasting for like over 6 months. So Blinky actually has a really, really healthy and active appetite. So giving Blinky a small cricket every few days is no problem. It pounces right on the food, and it will definitely eat it very quickly. So that's been cool to watch, because Spidey tends to kind of play with her food because she doesn't really have that appetite drive like Blinky does. So that's definitely been a huge difference, and that's like another difference that I figured out might be more related to species. But as far as like hunting strategies, like I mentioned, Spidey definitely plays with her food. She kind of digs around for it. A lot of times it gets away from her because she's too slow. She like tends to wait for like the perfect moment, and a lot of time that moment just passes. So anyway, but Blinky, something that was really cool that I noticed is that with the Arizona blonde, they're notorious for digging a lot, way more than the Chilean rose hair. So what Blinky has done is made a little underground layer with like a funnel tunnel that goes up to the top, to the surface, and I just recently saw this work out really, really well for Blinky. A cricket basically walked right down the tunnel into the layer where Blinky was like waiting and pounced. So I've never seen that kind of hunting strategy with Spidey before, and it could be just because she's older and lazier and like is just over it, but that's definitely something that's different, and maybe this is just something that young spiders do. I'm not sure. Blinky is my first sling, so I don't know, it's just something really cool that I observed, is like there's a definite strategy going on that I've never really seen with Spidey, so I thought that was pretty cool. Another huge difference is the molting cycles. Like Spidey, being an elderly spider, she molts, I think right now it's like every 2 to 3 years. about. Yeah, she's definitely in her elderly years. With younger spiders, Blinky hasn't molted in my care yet. I've had Blinky for about 2.5 weeks now, but I'm expecting them to molt at least once a month. Blinky is growing, so I'm sure that it's going to be any day now, and they've been eating pretty well, so I'm sure that it's time to molt soon. Another big difference is the enclosure. Now, most tarantulas do not need an enclosure that's big to begin with. For example, Spidey, who's a terrestrial, she's in a 10-gallon. This is honestly pretty big for her, but I do allow her to have it because it's filled with a lot of substrate, and I actually have noticed that she uses all of the space. Sometimes she really loves to dig around and create all these tunnels. So while she could definitely have a smaller enclosure, I prefer to leave her in this because she actually does like to use like her toys, her log. She has like a little mini tank that she kind of uses as like her little bedroom sometimes. So I actually think that she enjoys the enrichment of the space, but you can definitely put them in something smaller. They don't need to be in a 10-gallon, even as an adult, that kind of spider. But of course, a sling needs something really, really small. Like right now, Blinky is in a small deli cup, and slings that are even smaller than Blinky, who is currently about the size of a dime, they can be in something like even smaller, like a spice jar. So you don't want to give these guys too much room because they're extremely fragile. And of course, like their decor also has to be scaled down to size too. You do not want to be giving a sling a water dish like what Spidey has. So you want to give them like a very shallow bottle cap or a tiny little jar lid so that they can't, they don't have too much water, or the humidity is not going to be too much in their tank, because these guys are actually very sensitive and fragile, and they don't have the hardiness yet that a full-grown tarantula does. So you just want to be really careful with that. And of course, decor can kind of be a little bit of a challenge when you're dealing with a spider that small. So right now, so a lot of tarantula owners actually give their tarantulas little like leaves or little tiny little fake plants as far as hides, just because it's so hard to find something else that will kind of cover them but also fit in a tiny enclosure. So that's a big difference. And of course, the food also needs to be scaled down. No tarantula, even if it's full grown, should be given food that is too big for them or could be potentially harmful for them. I tend to give Spidey pretty decently small roaches and worms, just because she tends to be not very aggressive, and also because she doesn't really have a big drive to eat a lot of the time. So I don't tend to feed her too big of prey items, even though she is a full grown. But with a sling, they're even more fragile, so you want to be extra careful. So right now, Blinky is eating tiny pinhead crickets. You can also give them pinhead roaches, and for the very, very tiny fragile slings, or when tarantula owners are worried about them, what they will do is they will pre-kill or partially injure the food. So a lot of tarantulas do better off with live prey, but there have been a lot of tarantula owners who have success with pre-killed stuff, and that works really, really well for baby slings who are extremely susceptible to being hurt. And I kind of mentioned this before, but the other thing is the hardiness of the tarantulas. So while Spidey can probably take a lot of change in her tank, she won't like it, but her body, you know, she's lived this long. She knows how to spider pretty well by now. With slings, they tend to be very sensitive to things like humidity, dehydration, and you know, prey items. Like really anything can hurt them because they're so tiny. So you know, it's not something that I like to think about, but I do in the back of my mind know and understand that a lot of times some slings just don't make it, and that's just a reality. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the owner, it just has to do with the cycle of life, and slings are very fragile. So you definitely have to be more careful when you have a sling, because there's just a lot of more things that could go wrong and a lot of different things that could be harmful to them. So anyway, that's what I'm learning right now. I'll definitely cover more in the future as I grow into a sling mama, and I'm really excited to share this journey with you guys. If you guys have any other experience with slings, please let me know in the comments below, and you can also subscribe to my channel if you liked watching these educational tarantula videos. I do put them out every week along with my Tarantula Tuesday newsletter, which you can subscribe to at the link below. I also have a blog post connected to this video where I go a little bit more in depth and have a few sling videos in there as well that you could watch just for educational purposes. And I also have a tarantula guide and tarantula magazine that I'm also going to leave links to below just so you can check them out if you want to see a little bit more of my work and the things that I'm working on. So thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate you watching, and I look forward to talking to you in the next video. Bye.